Hello everybody, I'm Don Counts. Welcome into Fayetteville Public Utilities Channel 6. Today we're going to be talking with Farm Bureau women, and we've got Karen Whitehead with us. And Karen, we have got a great show today. We're going to be talking about dairy.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for having the Tennessee Farm Bureau women come on the program again. Since this is June is Dairy Month, we want to talk about the dairy industry. It was at one time a big part of our county's past. A lot fewer dairies now, but it's still an important industry in the county, and thank you for letting us come on and talk about it.
Yeah, milk's a vitally important thing. You know, so many youngsters go through the dairy area at their local market and, you know, just take for granted that milk's there. But the processing of how it comes from the cow to the store is a lot more to it than most people think.
Yes, it is. My dad had a few cows, you know, when we lived on the farm over in the Lincoln community, and I remember him milking and putting the milk in the cans for the milk truck to come by and pick it up. There's a lot to it. He was a small farmer, not a dairy farmer.
Yeah. Well, just tell everybody what the Farm Bureau women are doing. This is something you want to try to get programs on to make people aware of what's going on.
I am on their commodity promotion committee, and we're trying to bring attention to the different products that are grown in the county that contribute to the commerce of the county. And so that's my job, but there's a lot more other things that they do. They're especially, you know, active in ag in the classroom. We have helped with Dairy Day before, and you know, we heard all of us are familiar with Dairy Day, but we've heard a lot of talk about them not having Dairy Day this year due to I think shorthanded and other things. So, but Farm Bureau women have been involved in that. They're involved in providing assistance to the food programs in the county. I think I've mentioned before, we go up to Ronald McDonald's once a year and provide lunch for the people that are staying at Ronald McDonald House. So they're involved in a lot of things. And I'm still new with the Farm Bureau women, so I don't get involved in a lot of the other things that they do.
Well, Farm Bureau is a great organization. It's supportive to the farmer, and that's very, very important, and that's what you are doing. Let's talk about today's show and who all we're going to have on the show, and a little bit about how you picked them.
We wanted to take the opportunity to bring attention to the dairy farm industry here today. We're having Maggie Dunnivan from Dunnivan Farms in Petersburg, and she is not new to Channel 6. She's been on here before. We also have Mr. C.M. Bates, who was part of the Sunrose Dairy in the Fayetteville area. We're going to have them on in just a little bit. They're going to have some interesting information and stories to tell. But before we get into our program, I would like to give a shout out to a very lovely couple. A lot of people know this couple, and that is Hilton and Christine Sullivan of Fayetteville. They had worked hard many years helping the dairymen with their keep track of their herds and their herd performance. They were also contributed time and effort in the Dairy Day for many years, and we appreciate them. They're retired now, but they continue their relationship with the dairy industry and a lot of the people that they knew, and I just wanted to mention that that's an important couple.
In my day of growing up in the milking industry, Hilton and Christine Sullivan would come by and take a sample of each cow. I don't think it might have been quarterly or whatever, and they tested and weighed the milk, and they were always a delight as a farmer, as a young farm person, Maggie's age. You know, it was a delight to have them there because they were, and they're still a delight today.
Yeah.
And they have about as much passion about the dairy industry as Maggie does, for sure. And so we appreciate them, and they're a great part of Fayetteville, Lincoln County.
Yes, they are. And I've been fortunate to meet Miss Christine just in the last 3 years of my association with my husband Randy, who I did.
Right.
And it's just been a pleasure to get to meet her. She's just him and her both, just a delightful couple.
We thank you for getting these programs together. We thank you for what you do, and we're looking forward to the program today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us again.
Thank you. Looking forward to the program.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. We are here talking with the Farm Bureau Women's Organization today, and we appreciate them putting this program together for us. Today, we're going to be talking about dairy, and we're going to be talking about, this is recorded in June Dairy Month of June, but we will be airing this on through June, July, and August. So we appreciate everyone watching here on Fayetteville Public Utilities Channel 6. Today, our guests are Maggie Dunnivan right here, and then we have C.M. Bates right over there, and we appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we have one person in the room that knows all about dairy there, C.M. But you've got some serious history of dairy. Let's talk about your days of growing up and what the name of the farm was and where it was.
Well, first of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone that's involved, and I appreciate the opportunity that you have given me to talk about my family history. That being said and everything, the history of the Sunrose area first started with my grandfather, Mr. Charlie Bates. He started off with the Clover Leaf Dairy, and it was this picture right here.
Okay, Maggie's going to get a hold of that, and you can set it on the thing, and then Sarah Mack will zoom in on that, and we'll get a close shot of it. Okay, tell us about this picture, Mr. Bates.
That picture was taken in behind the old site at the Lincoln County Bank, and there was a house there now. It's a parking lot, and you can see up the street the back of Washington Street Church of Christ. And as you can see in that picture, that he had a kind of a dipper in one hand and a bottle in another, and the 10-gallon milk cans, and the milk was transported from the dipper into the quart milk bottle and then went to the customer. Mm-hmm. And that was raw milk. I mean, it was just from the cow.
That is very cool. Let me take a look now. This picture has to be very old.
It's real old. It was that Washington Street Church of Christ was destroyed by a tornado. I done forgot what year it was, and
wow.
And that was when it was the Cloverleaf Dairy, and then later on the Sunrose Dairy.
And tell everybody where this dairy was located.
This dairy is located about a mile from off the Chenault Ford Road, on the Chenault Ford Road, about a mile out from the bypass.
Not very far out of the city limits at all.
Not very far at all. It's the last white house on the right. Of course, the dairy barn and the processing place it's all been gone now. Mm-hmm. But the house is still standing.
Let's talk about one thing that we drove by there not too long ago. There's a sign out front about a Century Dairy, a Century Farm. I'm not sure.
Yes, sir. It's been in the family for over 100 years. My daddy bought the dairy business from his daddy in approximately 1949.
Wow.
And we've been running it. Myself, my sister, and my younger brother all helped. Mm-hmm. And my sister, her main job was milk goats. We milked goats and sold goat's milk to people that was under a doctor's care, you know, for. Mm-hmm. And it was the most expensive milk. It was 50 cents a quart.
Oh.
And
wow.
That was high.
Are you familiar with goat milk? We've talked about plenty of other milk, Maggie.
I am not as familiar with goat milk as I am cow's milk.
But are you saying, seeing that goat milk is better for you or something?
Yes, sir. It was better for you, especially with people with stomach problems and everything. These was registered goats. The breeds from them come out of Texas, and we mostly had Jerseys and Guernsey cows because they produced the maximum of butter fat. And back during the 30s and 40s and everything, people looked to, they wanted butter fat in their milk.
Oh. What about today? We don't want that,
They
do we?
don't want that.
Today, butterfat is nowhere near as important as it used to be. Today, we're focused more on fluid milk production. So that's one reason the Holstein breed takes up most of the dairy cattle that is in today's
Did you say
society.
fluid?
We're all about fluid milk.
Making more milk.
Yes, all fluid milk, making more milk just to be sold as a gallon jug is the main point that we want to try to get to today. So today, Holsteins, they are the most popular for that reason. They do have the lowest butter fat, but we're mostly shooting for that fluid milk production. And with that fluid milk, it opens up many more doors. And you can also take that extra fluid milk and put it into other products, which is one reason fluid milk is such a main point to get to.
Very good.
So that's
Very
why
good.
Holstein.
Well, now, when you're talking about when y'all the cows y'all had in the early days, they were Jerseys, you said?
Jerseys and
And
Guernseys.
Guernseys. Now, tell me about the Guernsey cow. I'm not
The
familiar.
Guernsey cow was, they were kind of like a Jersey cow, but a bigger breed of cattle. And they produced a right smart of milk. But, and they was also they was better adapted to the terrain and everything. They could take hillsides and everything, whereas Holsteins and your other cows more or less like to have, they're more efficient on level ground.
Well, what about Guernseys? Anybody use milk Guernseys anymore?
Guernseys is a breed that's kind of went out of style.
Oh, has it?
Guernseys is not very popular.
Wow.
I do know I've heard of Guernseys, but they're not the most popular breed. Most people are going to do your Holstein Jersey mixes now. The Guernsey breed, they're nowhere near as popular. They're still around, but they're nowhere near as popular as they used to.
What years was you're talking about the Guernseys on y'all's farm?
I'm talking about the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Wow.
They
Did y'all move? What did y'all go to after the Jerseys and the Guernseys? Then what you?
we had some brown Swiss, and we just stayed with mostly the Guernseys, and it was proved to be back then pretty sufficient.
Well, you know, the brown Swiss, I believe. Let's see. There's a dairy down toward Ardmore that used to do brown Swiss.
Yes, they used to do all brown Swiss.
Yeah, what was the name of them?
Baylesses.
Bayless is very good.
Yes.
Yes. I will have a walking computer about dairy right here. But anyway, he went out of business. So are there many brown Swiss around anymore?
There's not many full brown Swiss herds. You have to go a little bit further up north to find your pure brown Swiss herds since Bayless sold out. And now you will run up on a dairy that has a handful of brown Swiss that they're breeding and working with. But you don't see many of that pure brown Swiss breeding anymore, especially in just one dairy herd.
Yeah. I guess back in the 30s and 40s, seeing y'all were milking by hand.
We was milking by hand up to the, I don't know what year it was, but we've got a milker that was pulled by a vacuum system, and you it had a 5-gallon bucket that you transferred from cow to cow, and that done the bulk of
I
the
got you.
milk.
Let's talk about milking by hand. When you milk by hand, you were actually milking into a bucket just like we see in the old photographs? Is
Yes,
that-
sir.
And then you take that milk from after you've milked the cow, then what did you do with it?
You have a room off to the side, and it has 10-gallon milk cans in it, and then you had a kind of like a funnel that had a strainer, what they call a milk pad, and you put that strainer, you poured the milk over it, and it filtered all of the the big stuff out into the can.
In the old milk jugs with a lid on the top, that's what we're talking about. One of the jugs about this tall, and
Yeah.
and you poured it off in there, and then so you basically filtering a little bit before it gets to I guess the board and milk plant. Is that where
Yes,
it went?
sir.
Let's tell everybody about that process.
Okay.
I don't want to leave the farm yet, but I do want to talk about the process of it getting to the board and milk plant, because even my generation, I don't remember the board and milk plant. And did I skip too much for you? I didn't mean to go
No,
too far.
that's okay. I was real. I'm not real familiar with the Borden's.
Well, where did y'all take your milk?
We took ours to Kraft.
Okay, well, Kraft, let's talk about the process. Of
It was. I don't know much about the process. It was just extra milk that we had in the summer, and we sold it
Sure.
as an excess. But Kraft in the article here was talking about how much that it helped the economy of Fayetteville and Lincoln County, because everybody had a cow, a hog, or tobacco crop, and the milk helped subsidize the income of farmers living, and in a lot of cases it was a basis.
Right.
And so you milked every morning, and Borden's come around, and they had their own trucks, and they would pick up the 10-gallon milk cans, and then they would disperse of the milk and process it, and return your milk cans back to you.
And where was the place y'all took yours?
We took ours to Kraft because we didn't have that much.
Which is where?
Kraft is
Like over there at the, like you going to Stonebridge Park?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
now I'm
sir.
with you. Now, Borden Milk Plant, it was in the
old museum.
Old museum. So we had two milk places
Yes, sir.
in Fayetteville.
Yes, sir.
That's amazing.
Borden's was a whole lot bigger than Kraft.
Okay.
They had, I think it said 75 employees at one time, and contributed to a whole lot to the economy of Fayetteville.
Well, Maggie, as you know this about where milk goes, back in those days, milk went to, what did it go to back in those days, and then what does it do to go today? What's the difference? What's changed?
Where a lot of farmers, you had many more processing plants back then. Today, you don't have that amount of processing plants. But we've really modified where we don't have just one truck picking it up in cans. We have a tanker coming in and picking up thousands of pounds in one stop.
Oh, yeah.
So we've really modified that way. And then today, when it comes to processing plants, you really don't have that many processing plants to go to. You're very limited. And as of last year, now you're even more limited because so many processing plants were shut down last year up in the north. So today, you're really having to cut down, and one processing plant is taking thousands and thousands of gallons of milk a day, and then they're taking it and they're having to put it in different ways. In the processing, we still have the similar process to get that milk ready for the store. It's just a matter of how we can use it. We have so many more options, and we're so much more efficient when it comes to getting it from cow to plant to store. We're getting it in a really short time period now.
And things have just changed and gotten so much higher tech. But back in your day, seeing it's livelihood, not only money, but you had to eat, and you were. I guess the milk was going to not only milk to people would eat, drink, but it would also go into cheese.
Yes, sir. We didn't have make cheese. We just had pasteurized, homogenized, cream, chocolate milk, and I think that's about it.
I got you. Let's talk about something he just mentioned, the pasteurization of milk. That really changed tell everybody what that is.
So the pasteurization of milk is where when we sell the milk to a company, it has to go on that tanker truck. It has to be 38 to 40 degrees. When it gets to the plant, it cannot be any higher than 45 at least. So a plant really wants it around that 38, 40 degrees when it gets in the plant. And when it gets to the plant, they want it at that stage, so that way they can put it through pasteurization, which is the act of heating the milk up and then cooling it back down in a short time period to kill all bacteria within the milk.
And that is what made the milk bloom into what it is today.
We had our process was it was on a small basis and everything. We had a wood-fired boiler.
Wow.
And it went into the what they call a pasteurizer. It was double-fired, double-walled, and the steam went into at a circuit in the side of the walls of the stainless steel pasteurization process, and it was, I think it was heated at about 170 degrees for 30 minutes to an hour or something.
Y'all had that on your farm?
We did that, and and it went from there to a kind of like a stainless steel coil and everything with cold water that circulated on the inside,
Wow.
and the milk flowed on the outside and went into a bottler, and we bottled it in the bottles like that right
Wouldn't
there.
you love to see that? Wouldn't you love to see that?
That would be nice to have on a farm.
I would love to see how that old process works. I mean, we know what it's like today, but that is unbelievable. Let's talk about your bottle here. Is that where you can get to it there, Sarah Mac, there? Okay. Let's talk about how was your milk was bottled?
It was bottled and everything. There's a difference between some of your customers wanted pasteurized, some wanted it homogenized.
Oh, can you tell me the difference in those?
So we're pasteurization, we're heating it up, cooling it back down to kill the bacteria.
Okay.
When it comes to homogenization, you're actually busting up your fat molecules.
Oh.
So when you bust up your fat molecules, it's what you see in the store where it's just all mixed together. You get it out and it's just milk.
Wow.
Without that homogenization process, when you pull it out, it's going to have some layers where you have your cream and then your milk.
Very good. If you Google dairy, she's the one who's sending the answers out. All right, that is very cool. So y'all did that on the farm, so then you could then bottle it and sell it.
Yes, sir. And
Wow.
homogenized, most people wanted that, and it went into a kind of like a high pressure machine, and it was funneled into a thing about the size of a Hershey Kisses. It was a perforated stainless steel, looked like stainless steel wire and everything, and under pressure, that's where it joined the cream and the skim together, and it wouldn't separate. Like pasteurized, cream would come to the top.
All right,
Homogenized, it wouldn't.
Okay, let's explain. Why would a customer want one or the other? Go.
It's just preference, I reckon. I don't know.
Wow. Back in those days, let's talk about those days. How many cows were y'all milking? How much milk were you producing?
Well, we was milking about 35 or 40 cows. We was getting, I think, somewhere between 20 and 30 gallons at a milk, and you milk twice a day. Mm-hmm. You started before sunrise. I mean, when morning come, you was just through with your first milking, and then you had to come back in the afternoon and milk again.
Mm-hmm. 7 days a week, too.
7 days a week. And we was the first dairy to have, we had a refrigerated milk truck. We would load our milk up, and after we got through bottling it in the afternoon, and it had its own compressor, coils in the top.
Wow.
And it stayed cool while the other dairies, had to make ice and throw on the crates of bottles of milk.
So y'all were a big operation.
At one time.
Wow. Now, Maggie, there's one thing that hadn't changed. It's every day, and it's 7 days a week, and it's twice a day still, right?
Yes. At our house, it's still twice a day. You go to these bigger dairies, we're going to 3 times a day.
Oh.
But at our house, we're still kind of old style, and we're still doing twice a day.
Now, tell me, if you milk a cow 3 times a day, that can't be real good.
Actually, it's proven to be a little bit better. Milking them 3 times a day, you're going to get optimum milk production. Twice a day, you still want to do it, and you're still going to get high milk production. But when you bump them up to that 3 times a day, it's your milk percentage just goes so much more. Each cow is going to produce more milk.
Well, CN mentioned you start early in the morning, which is how y'all do it, and you do the evening shift. Where's the middle shift out for the third milking?
So most time they do the third milking, you're going to still start that really early in the morning, and then you're going to go kind of a midday afternoon, and then another night milking.
I gotcha.
They got it planned out a little bit more, and you have to do 3 times a day. You have to have so many cows.
Yeah,
you have to have thousands, and that way you have them in bunches, and it's a lot easier, and it's actually quick to do that 3 times a day.
Well, CN, aren't you proud you didn't have to do it 3 times a day?
It was work. Other thing I'd like to mention.
Go ahead.
Your milk customers expected something during Christmas time, and so we had to give them something for every Christmas for being a milk customer, and that was just one thing that one year that we give our milk customers that. And I want to make mention that, let's say, milk was 23 cents a quart. Buttermilk was 18 cents a quart. Chocolate milk was 25 cents a quart. And
Y'all put chocolate milk in these?
yes, sir.
Now, what was the process of putting the chocolate in
It
the
was
milk?
it was just a syrup added to
And then mixed
hard
up?
marginized milk. Yes, sir. And it was mixed.
Very good. Let me see this right here. Girls, this is what we call marketing. Old school marketing, and there's nothing wrong with that. Well, this is very important today. That's very, very cool. Got a little thermometer on it, and that's very nice. And there's just so much to talk about in the dairy industry, and we're talking about, it's fascinating to see how they used to do things and compared to today. And let's give you a moment to talk a little bit about, I mean, you've had this, but somebody who might not see it, let's talk about your farm, the Dunnivan farm.
So the Dunnivan family has always been in the dairy industry. It's just one of those things that we've always done.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not really an actual start. So family's always been in it, along with always having a tobacco patch, a few hogs, a few sheep, and some beef cows, along with hay and corn. That's always been our thing. However, we really established the name in a little town called Tally Station, that's southern Marshall County, is where Dunnivan Dairy really established and came together. My great-grandfather, Clayton Dunnivan, always milked by hand, and he kind of brought my grandfather, Jimmy Dunnivan, into it. So my grandfather always raised in it, started milking cows on his own in Tally Station, had a family, and then in 1976, they decided that they was going to move out to Petersburg in northern Lincoln County and establish a farm again. In 1976, they bought a farm on Cold Springs Holler in Petersburg and decided to build a new barn and a little bit more modern. When they left Tally Station, they had the bucket milkers. When they moved to where we are now, they decided to do the pipeline system, which was built by all family members. Our barn had no outsiders that built it. It was strictly family. So my family built the barn and put in the pipeline system. So that way, instead of having to move bucket to bucket from cows, it strictly went through a pipeline into a bulk tank.
And then, since your family built it, if something goes wrong, they can fix it a lot easier than if they had somebody else doing it.
We know it. We know that barn frontwards and backwards, I believe, by now. We've been in it for 40-something years now, so we've really enjoyed it. And that barn has not changed since the first time we started milking in that spring.
And you're going to give me a tour of that one of these days.
I can.
That's right.
We actually have the original glass lines that was in there when we started milking.
Oh my
So we're
goodness.
still going through glass lines. Our milk travels through a glass line before it gets to the bulk tank.
Well, let's make that happen soon. And it's amazing how far they've come, seeing. And one thing that she mentioned, some of the things what other things did y'all do on your farm?
Well,
Did y'all do more than dairy?
well, we had, let's see, we had, mostly we would raise hay.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
Hay and corn.
Yeah, you had to feed them.
And
That's another thing we hadn't talked about. There's another piece of the pie.
They ate, and right smart. And
All the time.
All the time.
Yes.
And so there's one thing, though, I would like to mention.
Okay.
is the question about the health part, you know, the inspection. And we had state inspection, I think, once a year, but they had a kind of like a regional inspector that would come. It would come anywhere, anytime it wanted to on the milk route and pick up a bottle of milk and run it through some rigid tests to make sure that it reached its specs. And then everybody that worked there and was around the milk had to have what they call a health card. We had to go to the doctor and make sure that, you know, that whoever was working around the milk wasn't harboring any kind of disease or anything like that.
Very good. It's amazing you had that back then.
It is.
For sure. And now today, it's even more stringent, I'm sure.
Yes, it's gotten a lot more strict. We still have the health inspector that comes around, but where his was inspecting the milk, ours is being inspected every other day when it reaches the milk plant. Our milk is.
Okay.
It's going through all these tests, making sure we have that low somatic cell count. There's absolutely no hormones, absolutely no antibiotics in that milk, so that it's at the right temperature, and that we have not went and added anything to that milk. So they're making sure that it's strictly milk from the cow that is the highest quality that we can produce.
But your inspector is checking to see if your barn is clean.
Yes, our inspector is making sure that barn is absolutely spotless. We have cinder block walls. We have to make sure that we keep paint on them walls all the time. The paint cannot even roll off. You have to make sure that you pressure wash everything every so often. You're always having to clean. There cannot be anything in there. Even when we spray for flies, you have to spray the flies out. So you really have to make sure that barn is absolutely spotless. And in our tank room, where we keep the bulk tank, it's all stainless steel. But we all know that after so long, after so much water sits on there and dries every night, you can see the little water specks. We actually have to take a brush and a special detergent and wash every piece of stainless steel every so often.
Have you had to do that?
We do. We do it every so often. And you have to make sure there's what they call milk stones, which is the buildup of milk around a gasket. You clean all that out. So when you have a dairy, it's a lot of sanitizing that you have to do and a lot of cleaning. So we really having to be strict on that and make sure that we're doing that.
Mr. Bates, have you ever heard of milk stones?
I hadn't heard that term in years. It brought back a lot of memories and everything. Every time that you used something, it had to be completely disassembled and washed and ready for the next process and everything. We had a kind of like a walk-in cooler there at home and everything, and we kept our the 10-gallon milk cans in this cooler and everything until we got ready to pasteurize or homogenize.
How heavy was a 10-pound?
It was pretty heavy.
After a while, they get
It was pretty heavy. Now,
I guess around 80 pounds. Is that about right? Because you're looking at 8 pounds. I don't know how much is it.
8.6.
8.6
per
so,
gallon.
So if it's 10 gallons, we're close to a little over, heading toward 90 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and plus the bucket. I guess you had some pretty good guns back in those days.
You didn't want to mess with the boys that jerked those cans up off of the road. Every place that every little farm would have a little ramp built beside the road, and they set their cans there where that boarders could reach and get those cans. And, and actually they was pretty stout.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's talk about a little bit more about the Dunnivan farm. Some other things you got going on up there.
So we're still in that same barn that we built, and today we're in it, and we're 100% pure Holstein herd. We milk all registered Holsteins in our farm. We're in the flat barn, which is extremely out of style today.
So you have to bend down to put the milkers
Yes,
on.
you have to squat down, prepare the cow, make sure she's clean, get back up, take the milker, squat back down, put the milker on her, and then while you're going and preparing another cow, that cow is milking out. We hold 6 head with 3 milkers. So you're always getting up and down, up and down.
Okay, so 6 head, you get 6 cows in the barn, 3 milkers. You swing them from side to side.
Yes, we have what we call bunches. Is a set of 6, and then you have your pairs, which is 2 cows. And between 2 cows, there'll be a milker. So that's how we can kind of do it. That milker, it just kind of hangs right there, and it can go from one cow to the other. So that's why we do ours. And then when you get done with that 6 cows, You take all the milkers off, hang them back up, apply all your post-dip, and then release those 6, drop new feed, and then bring in a new 6.
Okay. Now, what she's saying is a lot of barns would be in the milking guys or milking girls, well, they're in a pit, and so the udders are right here.
Yes, they're right there at your face.
In your case, it's sort of like CN. Back in the day, you had to squat down there and put them on there too.
Sir.
Yeah, so not a lot of change for her barn and yours then.
It was, they would go in what they call stanchions, and it would be a bar between each cow, and their neck would go through a kind of like a catch, and where they couldn't back out and everything, and you would feed them sweet feed, and you'd be milking them as they would eat the feed.
Let's talk about your process. Now the cows go in, but they're not caught, are they?
Now ours are. They actually go through a head latch.
They are latched, sort of like his.
Ours, yes. So ours is, so like each cow, there's 6 holes, and each cow will go through it. And then I actually have to walk up and bring the latch over to latch the cow.
Oh.
That way she can pull back in the latch, but she cannot leave her spot.
Now she's eating while she's milking?
Yes, there's a concrete trough in front of her, and there's a drop of feed. And that's her pile of feed that she'll eat, and each cow has their own pile. And they'll eat their feed while the milking process is going on.
Wow. Wow, that's really cool, and we've got to come see that. I don't guess there's anything to see. Is anything left at your place over there?
No, nothing but memories.
Nothing but memories. Well, you've got a lot of great memories, and you've got some of them written down. There's so much to talk about. Seeing, we could talk all day because I love the dairy industry, and the dairy industry, as you know, I love that, and then the history of it's amazing. And Lincoln County was a very strong dairy industry at one time.
It was.
And today, it's you're about all that's left. How many's left?
There's 3 dairies in Lincoln County today.
Wow. And you feel that the future's still strong for you? You feel like you're going to be milking when you get old like me?
I know that looking at the future of the dairy industry is not bright. I know that it's not a good path to be going on, but that's what I want to do. I have a love, I have a passion for the dairy cattle, for the dairy industry, so I want to stay in it as long as possible.
Very good. Well, as much passion as she has for it, she's going to do well whatever she does, for sure. And I know your family's got to be proud of you. And I'm familiar with Tally Station. I don't remember that story about y'all moving to Petersburg, but that's a really cool thing.
Yes, we moved to Petersburg, built the barn, and we're still there today.
Right. And tell everybody how old you are.
I'm 16.
16. So 16 whole years of a lot of knowledge in 16 years about the dairy industry. But you've lived it and breathed it every day of your life.
Yes, it's all I know, the dairy industry. Ever since I was little, they always took me to the barn, and now I've just been raised up on it to where now I can do almost every job. But my main chore is milking the cows. Milking that herd is my main job. Mm-hmm. And then I can do anything from mixing feed, cutting hay, baling it, feeding replacement heifers, vaccinating, caring, breeding. I do a lot of management decisions, whether to doctor or not to doctor. Yeah. So I'm kind of all around, but my main focus is milking the herd.
You're the youngest manager I know, and when you were actually wanting to go into what?
I really want to continue my passion in the dairy industry.
Okay, well, was it not going to be veterinarian? You don't want to do that?
I've always thought about being a veterinarian, but that would involve me to move away from home for at least 8 years.
That's a long time.
So it's a lot of schooling.
Especially when you love the farm as much as she does. Back in your day, let's talk about some of the veterinarians. Can you name some of them? Because
Dr. Bird and Dr. Bulletin, the only 2 veterinarians in Lincoln County.
What was the first one's name?
Dr. Bird and Dr. Bulletin.
Dr. Bulletin, yeah.
And so we've had to call upon them several times.
Sure. Y'all do some of your own, like you're doing some of that stuff today in-house in your own dairy. I guess y'all did a little bit of that yourself.
We didn't. We used to have people that artificially come out and inseminate the cows, and we done some of that. But as far we could do a certain amount of doctoring on our own, but when it got down to the serious stuff and everything, we let it to the pros.
Yeah, well, you've got that, that's for sure. Let's talk about artificial insemination today. That's pretty much the way it is all across the board now, right?
Yes, pretty much everybody does artificial insemination. That's one area that I'm actually very passionate about. I actually love it because I can sit down and look at a catalog and look at my herd while I'm milking and say, okay, well, I really like this bull. And I can say, okay, here's his numbers, here's his GTPI, here's his type, here's his milk number. And then I can look at my herd and say, okay, is this bull going to be efficient within my herd? If he's not, I know to turn the page and find something new. Right. And it's a real efficient process. We actually breed all replacement heifers artificial for the first couple of times. And if they seem not to take to an artificial insemination, you turn them out with the herd bull. And we use a herd bull that's really high genomics. So that way we're breeding for that genomic cattle. Right. So then we have our show cattle, and I like to breed type. That way I have a little bit of something extra at the side, and it's always helpful to have a little something else on the side that's a little bit different.
With artificial insemination, you can get more of the perfect cow.
You can actually breed specific things into a cow. Like when it comes to the show side, you want bulls that are high top. Top is the overall structure and body of the cow. So that way you can make sure they're tall, long, deep, wide, have the spring and the depth that you want. And you can also get on that desirable udder when it comes to proper teat length, udder attachment, and overall milk, how much milk she's going to put in the udder. Then you can get over to your genomic side, where genomics is not exactly the looks. Genomics is more of what's inside and for your long run. It counts as reproductive longevity, how often she's going to breed back, how good she's going to calve, whether she's going to have trouble calving in or not. Then you can also say if you breed a cow to that bull, are you going to have to pull all of his calves, or are your cattle going to be able to calve it naturally without your assistance? And then right now we're breeding cattle where you can make sure that if you breed it to that bull, they're going to produce more milk than your average. So that's one way that you can really use that artificial insemination to get the target. And everybody has a little bit different. Some people want cows, it's the type cattle. Some people want absolute milk cows. So you can really go for what you want and what the owner and operator desires.
Let's talk about the cow's life. There is periods of time where a cow is dry, is that correct? Let's talk about that.
So the dry period runs about 60 days. Okay. That's 60 days that the cow gets to go out on pasture, or at our house she's on pasture, and she can eat, lay down, and not worry about getting up and walk into the milk barn. That dry period is going to be those 60 days right before she calves in.
Gotcha.
So that's when she's dried up, she's producing absolutely no milk, and then she's able to restart again and start putting that milk back in that udder and getting ready to care for that new calf that she's about to have.
About how long will a cow live?
It really depends. I know your big dairies up north, when a cow gets 4, she's gone. Okay. And that's a good method to use. It's able to keep the herd healthy and on its feet. But it really depends. I've seen cows live as long as 12, and some cows don't make it that long. It really depends on their feet and legs. At our place especially, with them running on pasture, feet and legs depends a lot. Some cattle, it's just overall stronger. They're able to take the elements in this southeast area a whole lot easier. Some cattle, they are just not as stout.
Mr. Bates, how long did cows live back in your day? Don't remember?
Don't remember.
Yeah, I've always heard 4 or 5, 6 years, something like that's about your average.
That's about your average age that's going to run out.
Anything else from Mr. Bates we need to talk about?
One thing I would like to shed a little light on is you take something like, my father was kind of like the mailman and everything, but where the mail must go through, he thought that the milk must go through. And it comes to my memory, I want to say it was the early 60s when one of the coldest temperature that was recorded around here. I think it was 20 something below zero.
Wow.
And I just begged my father, I told him, I said, Daddy, those people out there don't need no milk today. Please, let's not go out there.
Not today.
Not today. But somebody that has to be out in the elements like that all the time, they can appreciate the insides and everything, and it was it was a demanding business. The childhood and the memories and everything was you couldn't ask for it better.
That's right. That's true. It's a good life to live. It's a good life you're living. Let's talk about in the older days we had cows on many farms, as he mentioned. Today, with fewer cows, we have more milk.
Yes.
How's that possible?
So we have the better genetics. We're breeding cattle where cattle is producing basically twice as much milk as they used to. Today, the average Holstein cow that's the most popular is going to produce an average of 70 pounds a day. So that's a lot more. And our cattle, there's just better cow comfort. You have all these barns that you can put them in. You have tons of misters, fans, ventilation systems. The cows are getting more comfort. We have better feed. We're able to feed them a lot better, so that way that they're getting the more nutrients, the more minerals to keep their body up and going, so that way they can produce more milk in the long run. So overall, it's just really improved a whole lot so that the cows can produce more.
Let's talk about the one thing you mentioned earlier, but real quickly, you mentioned one of the things that people think there's stuff in the milk that's not good for you. What are those things? And you say they're not in there.
Yes, a lot of people believe there's antibiotics and hormones in the milk that you drink.
And hormones.
Yes.
But you're saying there's neither one of those in there.
The only hormone that's in there is what's called oxytocin. And we're not, in the dairy industry, we don't really consider it a hormone in the milk. We basically consider it a hormone in the cow.
Gotcha.
Because without oxytocin, the cow cannot release her milk.
Yeah.
And so that cow has to release her milk. We cannot force her to.
That's God's hormone then.
Yeah, so like that cow releases oxytocin. That oxytocin is going to be in the milk, but there's not even a test for oxytocin to make sure it's in the milk. The only hormones we can test for is the hormones that you inject into a cow that, one, is not available for a dairy farmer to get their hands on very easy. And also, it's against the law, and you can get in serious trouble for using them. So it's not in that milk. And they're going to check it to make sure that you have not slipped up and got some in your hands either way. So they're testing it for those hormones. There's none. Then they're going to go back and they're going to test it for antibiotics. There's lots of antibiotics that you can get prescribed from a vet. I have seen people, you give it to her, accidentally slips, she gets in the barn, and the hand puts the milker on her, it goes into the tank. But today, we've really gotten tight on that. There's absolutely no antibiotics in any milk anymore. That was an old thing that used to happen. Today, you make sure you withhold that cow, whatever that medicine says, milk withhold time. And a lot of dairy farmers now, we hold them out actually extra days. So we're actually losing money by not selling that cow's milk to the public to ensure that the public is getting the highest quality milk there is. So that's one thing the public's not seeing. They're seeing it, the dairy farmer needs money. They're going to sell us that milk with antibiotics in it. No, we're not. And before that milk with those antibiotics they believe's in it, it can't even reach them, because when all that milk is mixed up in that bulk tank and they pull each individual farm samples, they're going to be able to see which farm put antibiotics in their milk and sold it. So they're going to target that farm and say, okay, you did this, we're not accepting it. Then they're going to take that whole bulk tank and say, okay, well, we're not accepting it at this processing plant. And then that whole tanker truck must be discarded. So the milk with antibiotics in it doesn't even reach the processing plant except for the parking lot. So that's one way we're making sure that it's the highest quality. Then you go along with the temperature. They're testing it before they even unload it. They're going to check the temperature, make sure that temperature's right. They're going to check each farm's individual somatic cell count, and they're going to test the whole bulk tank somatic cell count with everybody's mixed together. So you're really making sure it's the highest quality milk that you can ever place out on market.
Wow. Mr. Bates, your history is unbelievable. We thank you for your service and all the things you've done for Fayetteville, Lincoln County over the years. If I knew as much about my business as she does her business, I would be a pro somewhere besides here. But thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else that you want to tell us? Because anything else that we hadn't mentioned?
There's nothing that I can really think of.
Other than you've got to work with Sarah Mack on getting a tour for your farm, because we got to get up there and see that sometime for sure, because I think that would be good. Mr. Bates, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
C.M. Bates been our guest here. You have a beautiful farm over there. It's a 100-acre farm, 100-year farm? What's the deal?
Century.
Century farm means
Yes,
that it's been in your family for 100 years.
Yes, sir.
And still is.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for you, your knowledge, your passion, and we wish you well in the future.
Thank you.
Maggie Dunnivan, Mr. C.M. Bates, thank you very much for watching here on Fayetteville Public Utilities Channel 6. I'm Don Counts, and we'll see you back in here next time.